All right, today we're tackling something pretty fundamental. We're going to get into the literal physics of why we all, sometimes feel completely and utterly stuck.
I mean, it's got to be one of the most frustrating feelings in the world, right? You're putting in all the effort, working to exhaustion, but you're just spinning your wheels, not going anywhere. So, what gives? Why does this actually happen?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting because the answer is probably not what you think it is. It's completely counterintuitive. See, the problem might not be that you lack motivation. The real issue could be that your brain is, well, it's actively rewarding you for doing absolutely nothing.
And I'm sure you know this feeling. It's universal. You've got these huge goals, right? You're thinking about them all the time. Maybe you're even putting in the hours. But then, you look up and nothing. Nothing has fundamentally changed. You're basically in the exact same spot you were 3 years ago.
And this whole situation creates something we can call the progress paradox. It's that bizarre sensation of moving forward, of being busy, but without any real change in your life. It feels like motion, but really it's just turbulence.
So, to really get to the bottom of this paradox, we're going to decode a pretty incredible paper. It's called The Dynamics of Asking, Hope, and Action, a Brain Kinematics Model Analysis. Now, I'll be honest, it's a dense read, but the ideas inside, wow. They will completely change how you think about your goals, your motivation, and maybe even your failures.
All right, so let's start with the first big trap that this paper talks about. It's called the dopamine simulation. And yeah, this is where your own brain chemistry can actually start to work against you.
You've heard of this, right? We've all been sold this idea of the law of attraction. Just ask the universe for what you want. Visualize it really hard and poof, it'll just appear. Well, this paper argues that's not just wrong. It's actually pretty dangerous.
And there's this fantastic analogy in the paper that just nails it. It says that getting lost in just visualizing your goals is like buying all the expensive workout gear, taking a great selfie in it, and getting that amazing rush without ever lifting a single weight. You get the feeling of progress, that hit of satisfaction, but you haven't done any of the real work.
So here's what's happening in your brain. It's a simple 4-step trap. First, you think about your goal. You visualize it intensely. Then, your prefrontal cortex, that's kind of your brain CEO, it runs this super high-def simulation of you succeeding. Step 3, your brain gets flooded with dopamine, that feel-good reward chemical. And the result? You feel this amazing, tangible sense of progress without having taken a single step in the real world. You get the reward without the risk. It's a perfect closed loop of stagnation.
And this really gets to the heart of the deception, doesn't it? On one side, you have simulated progress. That's the neurochemical payoff, the hit of dopamine, without any of the hard work. It feels great, but it's a dead end. On the other side, you have actual progress. This requires difficult, sometimes scary action and facing real-world feedback. It feels hard, yeah, but it's the only thing that actually creates change.
Okay, so if just visualizing is a trap, then what's the alternative? This brings us to the absolute core of the paper, this radical new framework. It suggests we stop looking at our minds through the lens of psychology or poetry and start looking at it through physics.
They call it the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short. And just like kinematics is the branch of physics that studies motion, the BKM treats our psychological states, things like hope, fear, desire, as literal physical forces. It calls this internal psychic energy strain.
So the whole model is built around this incredible bow and arrow analogy. Think about it. Hope isn't just a feeling, it's potential strain. It's the energy stored in a drawn bowstring. Asking for what you want, that's focused strain. That's aiming the arrow. And action, well, that's the kinetic discharge. That's finally releasing the arrow. And here's a key part. Waiting isn't passive. It's the exhausting act of holding that bowstring tight, just accumulating more and more strain.
Okay, so with this new physics-based framework, we can literally start to map the invisible battle that's going on inside your head every single time you think about doing something big or taking a risk.
And that battle really comes down to two big opposing forces. On one side, you've got what's called desire strain. That's just the raw force pulling you forward, how badly you want something. And fighting against it, you have inhibition strain. Think of this as friction. It's all your fear, your shame, the social pressure, everything holding you back.
So this chart is basically a map of our own behavior, all based on which force is winning. Look, if your inhibition is way stronger than your desire, you get suppression. That means silence, regret, missed opportunities. If it's the other way around, desire completely crushes inhibition, you get impulsive behavior. Think of a toddler just demanding things. Now, what if they're both really high and just fighting each other? That's when you see distorted communication, like passive aggression or confusing hints. The sweet spot, the goal, is what's called integrated action. That's where your desire is stronger than the friction, but it's also guided by some social smarts.
And this is maybe the most crucial takeaway from the whole model. That unreleased strain, it doesn't just evaporate. It's like the law of conservation of energy. It has to go somewhere. So if you don't release it through action in the real world, it just circulates inside your head. It creates what the paper calls interference patterns. You know what that is? It's overthinking, ruminating, playing out imaginary arguments in the shower. You're burning a ton of energy, but you're going absolutely nowhere.
So this internal short-circuiting of energy creates these really specific, predictable loops of stagnation. Let's break down the 4 main ways this whole system can get jammed up.
Okay, so here are the 4 big traps. First, you've got the hope-asking trap. This is endless planning, no action. The dream just gets bigger and bigger, but more and more disconnected from reality. Second, the disappointment collapse. You actually take action, you fail, and your motivation just completely collapses. The bowstring snaps. Third is the false faith loop. This is a tricky one. You fail, but you reinterpret it as some kind of test, which protects your hope but stops you from actually learning anything. And finally, there's action without learning. This is working super hard, but completely ignoring feedback. It's like turning the wrong key in a lock, but just harder.
So take a second and really think about it. Be honest with yourself. Which one of these loops are you stuck in? Are you the endless planner? Are you someone who got burned and gave up? Or are you just exhausting yourself, grinding away but refusing to listen to what reality is telling you?
Now, this is where the paper takes a huge leap and zooms way out, because these little personal loops we get stuck in, they don't just affect us as individuals. They actually scale up and shape entire societies. I mean, this is a pretty profound idea. The paper argues that things like big political movements, our economic systems, even religions, you can view them as collective strain management systems. They're basically huge, complex structures that are designed to manage the hopes and the disappointments of millions of people, often as a way to keep things stable.
So, when you boil it all down, the biggest takeaway from this whole brain kinematics model is this. Real progress is not a feeling you have inside your head, it is a physical process. It's about converting that internal strain into external action, discharging it into the world, and then, and this is the crucial part, letting the harsh feedback of reality tell you if you're on the right track.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question to chew on. Think about all that strain you're holding on to, all that potential energy for your big goals. Are you discharging that strain for yourself, or are you maybe just a battery, full of potential energy, being held in a state of perfect tension to power some larger machine? It's definitely something to think about.